The film starts with our protagonist, Fisher, giving an exposition regarding past events. According to him, humans and elves fought together during a great war. He and his elf girlfriend, Leah, slayed a dragon together. However, they had to return to their own societies and engage in a long-distance relationship. The scene changes to show us the Elven Kingdom. We see Leah speaking with Queen Mayer about the Queen's upcoming wedding. Leah asks Mayer if her human friends, Fisher specifically, can attend the wedding. Mayer points out that Leah's brother is opposed to inviting humans, but she is willing to make an exception for Leah's friends. Leah then goes out and uses a sentient arrow to deliver a message to her boyfriend, Fisher. The scene shifts to a human city where we see Fisher trying to sell a cleaver to a customer. The arrow arrives and pets Fisher's dogs first before delivering the letter to him. He struggles to read the letter, but he understands its content. Naturally, Fisher feels ecstatic to receive an invitation. He closes the smithy for the day and begins working on something. The scene shifts to a dark and desolate place resembling a ruin. We see our main antagonist, a dark elf named Mela, carrying a dark gem. She brings the gem in front of an altar and infuses it with some of her blood. Doing so triggers a ritual that makes the gem absorb lingering souls around the location, making it more powerful. After absorbing enough souls, the dark gem emits an explosion that knocks Mela into a nearby pillar. Meanwhile, both the Elven Kingdom and the human cities experience a drastic change in weather. Strong winds almost interrupt Fisher while he's working on his personal smithing work. Fisher's dogs, Bow and Arrow, become agitated by something and run toward a corner. They continue to bark at several objects that begin to take form. Once the objects combine, the dogs get started and run away. The dogs bump into Fisher, and he sees a monster composed of a pumpkin, 2 radishes, and a rag. He goes after it into the alleyway and dodges the items it throws at him. The monster gives Fisher a hard time chasing it in the alley. However, when it comes around again back into the smithy, one of the dogs opens the furnace. Fisher then pushes the monster into the furnace using a loud scream. When the commotion is over, the blacksmith comes out and discovers a ring on the ground. Fisher reveals that it's the project he's been working on, a finger guard for Leah. The blacksmith warns Fisher that his relationship with an elf might not work out, but the boy dismisses the comment. Back at the site where the dark gem is, Mela gets back on her feet. She sees hundreds of floating specters around her. She tells these specters about her plan and urges them to join her at the upcoming wedding ceremony to ruin her sister's special day. In the next scene, we see a large airship named after the protagonist. Fisher and the blacksmith join Captain B, heading toward the Elven Kingdom. Fisher tries to explain the exhaustive list of rules they need to follow once they are in the kingdom, but the captain doesn't care. Fisher and his companions have mostly uneventful days while traveling. They pass through snowy and mountainous regions, and they encounter a few odd flying creatures here and there. One day, the blacksmith shows Fisher a hoverboard he made. Fisher takes the hoverboard off the ship for a test run. However, the blacksmith forgets to explain to him how it works. As Fisher freefalls from the ship, he upsets a flock of birds. Fortunately, he figures out how to make the hoverboard work before he crashes into any trees. The captain wakes up and asks where Fisher is. The blacksmith reveals that Fisher is somewhere a few hundred feet below the ship. The captain gets upset at the blacksmith and almost throws him overboard. However, Fisher comes soaring back up to the ship. He takes his dogs, and they ride the board with him. The captain is amazed while the blacksmith lets out a loud cheer because his invention works as intended. At this time, the ship is already at its destination. At the Elven Kingdom, Leah sees the airship and runs towards it. Fisher's scream then catches her attention. He hovers in front of her and reveals himself in a corny way. Leah is overcome with joy and jumps towards Fisher. This causes them to lose balance, and they fall several feet below, eventually landing on a tree branch. Fisher and Leah pick themselves back up and continue riding the hoverboard through the kingdom. They are having so much fun that they fail to realize how loud they are. They also manage to disrupt the ongoing traffic and disturb a few elven soldiers. Fisher and Leah eventually end up in front of Queen Mayer. Fish and his dogs give a proper bow before flying off once more. Leah's brother, the prince, appears beside Mayer. He asks why he was not informed of the humans' arrival. Mayer explains the situation, but the prince expresses his dissatisfaction. He points out that Leah should not be in a relationship with a human whose lifespan is significantly shorter than elves. Mayer tries to argue with the prince, but he points out a looming danger caused by the dark winds. He talks about monsters appearing everywhere. He uses that as a reason why he thinks Leah should not be wasting her time. Later that day, Queen Mayer leads Leah to a hidden place where the green gem of life is located. She tells Leah about the gem's importance to the elves and how they are the only ones that can guard it. She also explains the gem's history and how it used to be one gem but split into two, the dark gem and the green gem. Mayer gives the gem to Leah, telling her to wear it during the wedding. Mayer thinks that the gem is not safe in her hands because she can sense the power of the dark gem nearby. Hence, she tells Leah to guard it in her place. In the next scene, we see Fisher and his comrades walking toward the wedding venue. Elven guards bar them from entering and ask them to surrender their weapons first. They comply, but Captain Beat does so while making rude comments. Inside, the wedding ceremony begins, and we see several elves singing a serene song. Queen Mayer walks towards the altar with Leah following behind her. She pauses and reminds Leah about her mission before continuing forward. While walking, Leah thinks about what the Queen told her earlier that day, wherein she was told not to tell Fisher anything about the Gem of Life. Suddenly Leah's attention is caught by Fisher calling her from the crowd. She signals to him for them to meet somewhere private. Fisher and Leah rendezvous at an elevated platform overlooking the center altar. They watch as Queen Mayer and the prince slowly walk toward each other. The elves release multiple glowing orbs floating toward the sky, creating a beautiful view. The queen and the prince say their wedding vows. Meanwhile, Leah gives Fisher a retractable as a gift that would remind him of her. He then gives her the finger guard he made. Fisher tells Leah his plan to stay in the Elven Kingdom to be her. At the altar, the queen and the prince put on their rings. At the same time, Fisher tries to put the finger guard on Leah while saying the same vow. However, Leah retracts her hand, which confuses Fisher. All of a sudden, a loud noise disturbs the wedding ceremony. The upper wall of the venue gets pierced by a metal airship. When the tip of the ship opens, Mela comes out. She proceeds to unleash an army of specters inside the venue. The elven soldiers surround their queen in an attempt to protect her. As the specters terrorize the elves, Leah springs into action. She tells Fisher to stay out of the mess and proceeds to shoot arrows at her foes. Captain B joins the fight, throwing whatever he can at the enemies, including Fisher's dogs. Mela easily takes out the guards surrounding the queen and incapacitates the prince. Mela asks Mayer where the Gem of Life is. The queen attempts to fight back but is quickly overpowered. Fisher shoots an arrow and hits Mela's hand. She retaliates by propelling the same arrow back to Fisher, wounding him on his right hand. Fisher curls on the ground in agony as his hand becomes cursed by the dark elf's blood. Mela successfully captures Mayer. Before leaving, she tells the prince to meet her at the ancient battleground in 3 days. As the airship closes, Fisher sees his dogs get dragged inside by a specter. The prince orders his soldiers to prepare to pursue Mela's ship. He orders Leah to get the map while telling Fisher and his friends to leave the kingdom immediately. Fisher tries to volunteer to help, but Leah rejects his offer. Even so, Fisher persuades his companions to join the pursuit, even if the captain advises against it. The prince goes over his plan with Leah. She tells him that Mela might not keep up her end of the bargain. He tells her to focus on protecting the gem because he and his soldiers will handle the rescue mission. Later that night, Fisher shows up outside Leah's bedroom. He convinces her to join him on a secret mission to save Queen Mayer. While riding the hoverboard, Leah notices that Fisher is heading in the wrong direction, opposite where the ancient battleground should be. When she looks up, she notices that Melia's ship is hidden inside a large storm cloud. Inside the ship, Mayer is held captive by chains. Melia interrogates her regarding the gem. The queen tries offering a truce to Melia, promising to pardon her and allow her to rejoin the kingdom. Melia is not convinced. She then reveals her intention to get a hold of the map to the Elven Kingdom. Meanwhile, Fisher and Leah arrive at Melia's ship and attempt to sneak inside. The dogs see Fisher and try to go to him, but they retreat after seeing specters moving inside the ship's halls. Fisher and Leah locate Queen Mayer's whereabouts. However, Mela appears behind them. She tells them they've fallen for her trap and proceeds to summon specters to surround them. Fisher masterfully evades the specters. He cuts off a chandelier, causing it to plummet several floors down. They use the hole as their escape route. However, before escaping the ship, Mela grabs Leah from behind and throws her off the ship. Fisher immediately dives down to save her. Fisher catches Leah in midair, but he struggles to operate his hoverboard. Eventually, he and Leah manage to become airborne, and they fly back toward the prince's airship. When they arrive there, the prince scolds Leah for disobeying his orders. Fisher tries to defend Leah, but he gets told to leave since he doesn't belong there. Fisher is shocked when Leah agrees with her brother and tells him to leave too. Fisher flies away and cries while the raindrops fall on his face. Fisher suddenly feels pain in his right hand, the same hand that was struck by Mela. He faints while riding on his hoverboard. When he wakes up, the weather is sunny. Fisher hears Melia's voice talking to him. The wound on his hand spreads as purple smoke envelopes his surroundings. His hoverboard breaks, and he falls. Fisher then wakes up from the nightmare while the wound on his hand still burns. The next morning, Fisher goes up to the captain with a sad look on his face. Captain B tries to cheer him up by telling him that love is not for people like them. However, Fisher doesn't find the words of the captain comforting. He heads back to his room with a new plan in mind. The next scene shows us Mela's airship as it flies over an area called the Dark Valley. Multiple specters can be seen besides contraptions, pouring lava into various areas. At one point, we see Bow and Arrow tumble out of the ship and run in a random direction. They see a bird getting attacked by a specter, so they rescue it. They maul the specter until it evaporates. The bird thanks them and flies away. We then see Queen Maya being escorted to an isolated area atop a tower. Below her, we see Mela elevating a giant airship made of obsidian. Maya shouts at her, guessing that Mela is attempting to steal the soul of a dragon. Mela then teleports behind Maya and reveals to her the motivation for her actions. The Dark Elf tells her sister she's seeking revenge for being an outcast. She plans to take over the kingdom, stating that it's rightfully hers. After Mela leaves, Fisher's dogs show themselves to Maya. She then asks them for a favor. We then see Mela ramming her newly acquired airship into a giant wall of ice. She finds herself inside the dragon's graveyard. She tells the dark gem about the soul of a dragon that is sealed in there and offers the gem its power. Fisher suddenly arrives in front of Mela and her subordinates. She tells him that she's been waiting for him. Mela combines the dark gem and the soul of the dragon in front of Fisher. She tells him that the stone is almost complete and she only needs the gem of life. Fisher is clueless about most of the things that the Dark Elf is saying. Mela offers him a deal. She asks him to bring her the elven map, and she'll promise to reunite him with Leah. He declines the offer, so Mela resorts to blackmail instead. She warns him that an ambush is waiting for his friends if he doesn't bring her the map. Fisher doesn't give a definitive answer and flies off. Back at the enemy base, Bow and Arrow disguise themselves as a specter and sneak inside the armory. They grab a bow and some arrows, barely fooling the large specter guarding the place. When the prince and his troops arrive at the ancient battleground, they get ambushed by specters. The elves bombard the enemies with magical arrows, but they barely shave off the number of specters. The specters swarm together and deal a massive blow to the army. Several enemies placed anchors on the ship to limit its movement, while others throw torches to engulf it in flames. Leah gets grabbed by a specter, but Fisher arrives just in time to save her. Eventually, the specters surround the prince, Leah, and Fisher. Fortunately, Captain B and the blacksmith show up to lend a hand. Their intervention allowed Fisher and the others to board a new airship. The new ship almost gets dragged down by the burning elven ship if not for Captain B cutting loose the anchor connecting the two. Instead of thanking the humans, the prince attempts to buy the ship and evict its captain. The captain agrees at first but changes his mind after Fisher talks to him. Leah scolds her brother for his rude behavior. He responds by pointing out that Fisher's right hand is affected by the power of the dark gem. Leah suggests using the gem of life to cure Fisher, but her brother disapproves of the suggestion due to potential risks. They don't know that Fisher is eavesdropping on this conversation. Back in his room, Fisher remembers the deal that Mela offered him. He approaches the blacksmith and borrows a newly repaired hoverboard. In another part of the ship, we see Leah and the prince discussing a possible plan while viewing the elven map. Suddenly, Fisher bursts into the room and steals the map. The prince tries to shoot him with an arrow, but Leah intervenes. In the next scene, we see Queen Maya in the tower testing the bow that the dogs fetched for her. She heads the weapon under her dress as Mela comes near her. As soon as the dark elf turns her back, Maya starts shooting arrows at her. All her shots are evaded, but she eventually stuns Mela using magic. Maya attempts to touch the dark gem but gets electrocuted. This gives the dark elf the opportunity to incapacitate Maya. Mela tries delivering a fatal blow, but Fisher arrives just in time to stop her. Fisher tries negotiating using the map, but Mela incapacitates him. She easily snatches the map from him and uses it to find the location of the gem of life. She finds out that Leah was the one in possession of the gem all along. Fisher goes back to Captain B's ship and asks Leah to use the gem of life to cure him. She asks him how he knew that she had the gem. The prince then comes out and shoots Fisher but misses due to the captain's intervention. Fisher then acts out of character and forces Leah to give him the gem of life. He then proceeds to stop attacks coming from the prince and another elf. By that point, everyone realizes that Mela is controlling Fisher's body. Fisher attacks Leah again, but she outmaneuvers him and puts him in an arm lock. She gets a chance to stab him but hesitates. Because of that, he gets a chance to break out of the lock. At a certain point, Fisher shoots an arrow at Leah, forcing her to shoot back. Both arrows find their mark. Leah finds out that Fisher had broken the tip of the arrow before shooting at her. Meanwhile, the other arrow is embedded in Fisher's chest. Leah attempts to use the gem of life to heal him, but it doesn't work. As she cries, Fisher gives her the finger guard he made. She tries again, but this time using her own blood to trigger the gem's power. The gem's power is unleashed, and it creates a green explosion. However, Leah faints after using it. When she regains consciousness, she sees Fisher is awake, but he still has the wound on his hand. They share a touching moment before Fisher tells her the Queen's whereabouts. Using that information, the prince and the rest of the group head toward the Dark Valley. However, the group is unaware that Mela already knows that they are coming. When Fisher's group arrives at the Dark Valley, Mela's ship immediately hovers above them. She attacks them by manipulating their surroundings. She triggers lava to erupt from the ground, and one such eruption hits the group's airship. Then while the airship is spiraling midair, Mela uses her ship to skewer it. She corners Fisher and Leah, but the prince and Captain B distract her. This gave Fisher and Leah a chance to jump down and ride a specter. They crash into an area near where the Queen is. The prince successfully shoots the specter piloting Mela's ship. As a result, the ship tilts, causing the prince, Captain B, and the blacksmith to fall off. Fortunately, they all land near Fisher and Leah. However, Mela's ship comes crashing toward their location. The group's path toward the Queen is blocked by the crashed ship. As a solution, Leah fires the Gem of Life using a sentient arrow. The arrow flies to Mayer's location and gives her the gem. She comes to her senses. Mela breaks out of the ship, and the group flees before she can see them. They soon find themselves at a dead end in front of a rock throne surrounded by lava. Mela swiftly arrives and snatches Leah, keeping her hostage. Fisher tries to jump toward Mela, but she sends out a tornado to stop him. She then uses the tornado to drag the group off a cliff, but Fisher is fast enough to grab onto them. When Mela is about to deliver an eliminating blow to Leah, vines appear from nowhere and restrain her. The vines also catch Leah and the others, preventing them from falling. Mayer suddenly reveals herself from behind the group as the one controlling the vines. She reunites with the group and seals Mela under layers of tangled vines. While everyone tries to celebrate their victory prematurely, Mela breaks out of the vines. She reveals a new draconic form caused by merging with the dark gem. Mayer tells everyone to run as she deflects Mela's attack. While running away, Bow and Arrow encounter the giant specter from the armory. Fortunately, a large flock of birds shows up out of nowhere and pelts the specter with pink goo. Mela quickly catches up with the group. While flying, she bombards them with balls of dark energy. The group is forced to hide under a structure. Fisher sees a nearby furnace and is reminded of a past event. He formulates a plan and asks the elves to trust him. They nod in agreement. Mayer comes out and holds out the Gem of Life. When Mela flies down to get it, Mayer throws the gem to another elf. The gem is then passed around to different characters while everyone evades Mela's attacks. The last one to hold on to the gem is Leah. She joins Fisher in his hoverboard as they lure Mela near a furnace. Mela tries to control Fisher's mind again, but Leah helps him power through the mental pressure. She shows him the finger guard and tells him that he will never take it off. By doing so, she reassures him that her feelings for him will never falter. Eventually, they get Mela to be where they want her to be. Fisher pushes Leah off the hoverboard and acts like he's giving the gem to Mela. However, as he is about to hand over the gem, he retracts his hand. Fisher lets out a strong roar that pushes Mela into the furnace behind her. Then, his friends below the furnace pull the lever to close the lid, trapping the dark self inside. Unfortunately, Mela teleports behind Fisher and takes him along for a ride. She brings him with her as they hover atop a pool of lava. Mela takes the Gem of Life from Fisher's hand and attempts to combine it with the dark gem. However, Fisher puts up a fight, causing them to struggle in midair. Eventually, both of them end up plummeting down into the lava. Fisher's friends mourn as they see his hoverboard fall from the sky. All of a sudden, the furnace in front of the group trembles and is encased in ice. Then vines begin to burst out and grow all over it. The furnace takes the form of a tree. The specters in the area begin to evaporate, leaving only the souls to float around the furnace. The group is dumbfounded, unaware of what is happening. Leah and the others look into the furnace and see a blue gem that slowly transforms into a humanoid shape. The transformation turns out to be Fisher, alive and whole. Leah gives him a tight hug. The prince cannot believe what he just saw. He says that he's never seen a human fuse with the Gem of Life. Mayer tells him that Fisher is proof that he should look at humans differently. She theorizes that the gem might be sending a message about self-sacrifice, and Fisher was the person used to convey it. Everyone celebrates Fisher's feat of bravery, and they prepare to leave the valley. However, what the group fails to notice is that Mela is still somewhere nearby. She is transformed back into a regular elf, free from any curse or dark energy.